All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for another Tales from the Pantheon session. My name is Gabriel Rucker, and I am the CEO and co founder of Founding Titans, a community focused relationship optimization platform. And today we have another amazing episode of Tales of the Pantheon for you. So, today we're going to be talking about family office dynamics. Who are they? What are they? How do they work? All of those amazing things. But before we get into introducing our amazing and esteemed panelists, I want to bring over my co-founder, Brandy Beasley, to give a quick intro for herself as well.
Hi, y'all. I'm Brandy. I'm the co-founder, like you said, and the COO of Founding Titans. I'm so happy that y'all are here. Drop your questions in the YouTube stream. I'll be in there and I'll be answering any questions that you have or bringing them up for Gabriel and the team to address along the way. All right. Look forward to having y'all here.
Yeah, and this session is recorded, everybody. So definitely, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on YouTube, wherever you're watching from, make sure you drop your questions, comments, concerns in the chat. We're going to be reading through those, and then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this where we'll be bringing up a lot of your different questions. So make sure that you're predominantly asking those basically as we're going through. It really helps us out to make sure we're able to weed through everything before the last 10 minutes of the session. But that's the run of show for you guys. And so Brandy is going to be going off screen, but she'll be hanging around in the background and in chat. So definitely make sure you guys engage with her. But now we're going to be bringing on some of our amazing panelists here. So first off, I want to bring up my very good friend and a man that has been very, very influential in some of the different conversations that I've been having with investors, Ashton Moore.
Wait, that's me? A good friend and influential? Thank you, Gabriel. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself and yeah.
Of course, simple stuff. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. Now leaning into the capital advisory game, 20 companies in 20 years, still have an active portfolio of companies in marketing, media, hospitality, and tech, all of which I love dearly, as a founder should. I was really thinking about prepping for this session, what to say about myself. And if you think of a family office as a first-generation business owner who's done fairly well, or a second generation of sons and daughters who are running, some of the things either in front of the scenes or behind the scenes for these successful businesses. I realized that I was 21, Gabriel, when I started working with the equivalent of family offices, just really bitty ones, because they were small business owners who I would meet with and work with daily. So really over the years, all that's happened is I'm just doing the same thing I've always done, just working with folks who have been around a little longer, built a little more, if that makes sense.
No, amazing, man. Thank you for the insights there. And we're going to pop you back onto the screen in a second for everybody. But the next person that I want to introduce is another really good friend of mine. He gave me an amazing quote that I'm going to use right now where, if you know one family office, then you know one family office. And so I want to make sure we bring up our next guy here, Sachin.
Hi, Gabriel. Thanks, everyone, for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and if you want to go ahead and give your quick intro on yourself and what you're working on and some context on, why we've got you on for this session,
Sure, yeah. I'm an entrepreneur and I've been an entrepreneur for 15 plus years and been building and investing in companies and ultimately working on Elevation AI right now. It's an agentic orchestration platform. We take the universe of a family office, plug it into our platform, and work to help accelerate everything they're doing, organize it, and inject the power of agentic AI there. And I'm also a GP at EA Investments, where we're investing in the broader AI ecosystem.
Perfect. Thank you, man. And we're going to bring you right back on in a second when we start the panel. But last but not least, we have somebody that I just met, but is a really good friend with Ashton. And so very, very lucky to have him on the panel here. We have Jonathan.
Thank you, Gabriel. I'll jump into on my side. So been in the private investment field for almost a decade, and with this single family office, which is a first generation, the founder started 50 years ago, has built the wealth, and about 30 years ago officially opened the family office. So I'm over the private investment team and also do the public portfolio allocation.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for the background there. And so now we're going to bring everybody else back on here. And we're going to start with these amazing questions that we have for you guys. So some of these were actually submitted via our audience over here at Founding Titans. We've got over 14,000 folks that are basically signed up for our platform in one way or another. And also just some questions that, I've heard over the years at being an accelerator director, founder, all of those different things. So first, let's ask the fun question, which is, what is a family office? How does it actually differ from the typical, traditional investments for traditional funds? And I'll go ahead and I'll toss this to Jonathan first.
All right. Yeah, we're working one. That Sachin's got the quote exactly right. There's definitely been a shift. So just shout out some places. Forbes and CNBC do a pretty good job of, they have a kind of tracker of the current state of family offices. So some material, someone's looking into it, but really it shifted, called COVID, because it seems like everybody in New York and everybody in LA then had a family office, right? Everyone popped one up. But the way we think of them, I would say the way the industry actually thinks of them is somewhere north of $150 million that they are allocating into some other investment strategy outside of a general public market portfolio. That's the way we think of it. I would say if you look at Bessemer's white paper, et cetera, that's how they do. And that's just how we run our strategy. We act like a VC, I would call it, in certain opportunities, and we act like a private equity group in certain opportunities. And then the structures vary widely, which I know we'll get into.
If I could jump in, yeah, agreed completely with everything Jonathan said. But I actually think that that's where a lot of the misconceptions come in, because people tend to assume that because they are a family office, they do venture, especially in the world we live in. Gabriel, the next call I have today is with a second generation who took over as the family's office and looked at the portfolio and saw that they were 90% or 98% real estate and 2% real estate debt lending, and said, we need to diversify. We need to look at venture. We need to look at things outside. But during the entire time up to him coming into the office and saying, we should diversify, any venture founder who would have gone to that group would have just gotten a weird look. So as Sachin said, if you've met one, you've met one.
100%. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything for that, Sachin.
No, I absolutely completely agree, and I would say it's dynamic. It's changing every day, as Ashton mentioned. Right, when the next gen takes over, the definition of what that family office could change completely. Right, this is a big part of my world, is kind of platformizing, digitizing the family office. Is like, well, that next gen's used to be on Instagram all day, right? And now they're taking over and they're looking at spreadsheets and books and papers, and so that changes things, and the ability for what a family office can be is changing.
No, 100%. I mean, even talking through some of those evolutions, it kind of, I guess, brings up the next question with, how have things evolved over the recent years? And, what are some of the, major trends that are, happening right now that really shaped some of these investment approaches? And I guess anybody can take this one too, because I know everybody's probably got a different response on this.
Yeah, Jonathan, Ashton, I think you guys are leading more on the investment side. I can definitely comment on the venture side as well.
Yeah, Ashton, I led the last one. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the major trends I'm seeing right now is a lot of love for private credit, which is really just private lending. Private credit funds are popping up left and right with very good returns. So it's lots of non-traditional lending. I've recently cracked my way into some of the art stuff that's going on, and one of the strangest things I've learned, I guess not strange to everybody else, this was normal, is that if you own, let's say, for example, a Monet, you can actually lend that, or you can actually borrow on that privately at a 50% LTV with about 15% annual. That blew my mind. But I'm just seeing more and more debt, healthy debt for the most part, and frankly, recently less venture. It doesn't mean the venture isn't happening, but the venture is generally happening with folks who are already close with the families, is what I'm personally seeing.
Yeah, I'll touch on the venture side. I've been seeing this through multiple venture firms that I've been a part of, is that I'm seeing family offices circumventing and essentially just bypassing venture firms and going direct to the investments that they want to make and direct to the organizations, startups, etc. And so I think venture is growing. It's exciting. I second, what you said, Ashton, on private credit, and I think they're getting more involved in the decisions that they're making and not just having somebody that's making the decisions for them. So that's a trend that I've been seeing for some time.
I am also seeing, just to add on to that in a positive light for the venture side, I am seeing the younger generations come in and launch their own venture funds. So what sort of the evolution, at least the way some of the family offices have described it to me a few different times, is that they decided to launch a venture fund or a fund at all because their friends wanted to get into the opportunities they were investing into. So they said, okay, instead of making this complicated, we'll launch a fund. You can be an LP. And then those are being run by the families. And in some situations, of course, like Jonathan's, they're bringing in people who really, really, really know how to do the capital markets, how to play the capital markets, which I think is just another great trend when you don't have to try to figure out how to go at it alone.
Yeah, Ashton, to your point as well, we see a lot of warehoused funds approaches. So, and sorry, I'm lagging a lot, but can you all hear and see me fine?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
It's just the video.
Okay, just the video. Gotcha. That's all right then. So a lot of, we see family offices, whether it be their art portfolio, office buildings, etc., have assets warehoused and then rolling those into a fund and launching them, which are some pretty unique strategies, because normally you have almost more of a hedge fund approach. But I feel like that's a strong trend going on right now, and frankly, we only see that one growing.
Amazing. A lot of really amazing insights on that one. But there's something I think that's an elephant in the room for a lot of people, which is the family office structure. So even in my line of work, especially dealing with a lot of founders and a lot of VCs and like GPs looking for LPs and all these other different things, you see a lot of people that claim to be a family office and really aren't, or they really just don't understand truly the family office dynamics or structure. So can you guys break down the difference between a single family office or multifamily offices, and really what the pros and cons are of each of the different structures?
Yeah, I can jump in, set through countless of these symposium type events. So the multifamily office one is actually pretty simple. Generally, that is called an institution running some aspect of the family office. So the common ones you hear, like Bessemer, Brown, the Wilmington Trust, SunTrust, et cetera, all of those. That's a lot of what they're doing. And they go this full spectrum. They can literally take the entire family office under their wings, which you see a lot of generation one doing instead of passing it to generation two. So they can take everything from the billing to setting up the vacations for the families. It's honestly incredible the depth they go. or they can just do certain aspects, whether it be bill pay or just the tax returns. So there's back to the once you've met one, you've met one. There's a mix with there's a mix even on the MFO side of what services are actually being provided. I think when people think of MFOs, they think of just basically you're handing everything over to these organizations. And then a single family office is exactly how it sounds, just that family running, call it their portfolio. So normally you have probably is family office board that sits over all of the investment decisions, and then you kind of have what we call the softer points, which is the family dynamics, family legacy, who gets paid to go to what college, etc. So you kind of have two different camps there, but a single family office is running everything. And I've been long-winded, but I can get into the structures later, but I'll pass it to Ashton or Sachin if you would like to add anything.
Sasha, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the only thing I was going to add is that we're speaking to family offices as we continue to build and launch the platform here, and we're hearing some really interesting dynamics where some of the families are so large that they, from a single family office, they get broken up into as wealth gets transferred down to different generations, and then each one of them are creating their own single family office, and then there's some coordination between them as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think Jonathan explained the mechanics of it very well and such, and yes, agreed. I would say another way to think about it, if you're looking at a multifamily office versus a single family office from the perspective of a potential VC investment, one way to think of it would be that generally there's a core group of like full-time staff, professional staffers running the multifamily office because they're working with multiple pools of capital. So they're essentially going to most likely gateway venture investments, most likely. However, that multifamily office may do zero venture, and it's something you can ask, and that would mean that their pools of capital, the different families, may still be individually interested in investing, but not by banging on the door of the multifamily office. Whereas your standard single family office would be the direct into anything, but it's also important to remember that just because they are a single family office, that again does not mean they invest in venture. It could be 0% of their portfolio allocation, and or as a founder, they may only invest into venture funds, even if they do venture. So it's just really important to just ask.
No, amazing insights, guys, on that one. I actually answered a couple of questions that I kind of had on some of the dynamics between everything. But let's go a little bit more into investment strategy and decision making. So when it comes to the approach when investing, what are the factors that generally guide a family office's investment strategy and decisions, and how does that typically differ from institutional venture funds?
Yeah, I think this goes back to once you've seen one, you've seen one. Every family that I've talked to, they have completely different decision-making criteria, and it depends on even the family members that may have influence or the team members that are running the family office. I've seen ones that tend to build industry expertise and then tend to favor that particular, like biotech, for example, and then every next investment is around biotech because they're trying to build a consortium and an ecosystem around themselves and their portfolio. I've seen others that just really focus on FOMO plays, right? SpaceX and etc. Everybody's investing in this. I have to say I've invested in it too. Otherwise, and then there's others that I think really, honestly, I feel like these are few and far between, but that are really going out there and looking into, let's say, the startup ecosystem in general, and meeting founders, getting to know them, figuring out how they can support them. And I think when I think you mentioned, maybe it was Ashton, mentioned that they're creating their own VCs. That's when you'll see them going out to that level. But
yeah. And another way. Sorry, go ahead, Jonathan.
I was just going to say, well said. And if I can, so the majority of family offices I feel like we interact with is ones that come from a similar position that we do, an entrepreneur, a Gen 1. So you have a little bit of a dynamic there where I feel like they're a little bit quicker to invest into businesses, especially early stage. And then majority of the time, I feel like they kind of stay to their industry. The most family offices we work with stick to their industry to a bit. Again, it kind of depends on size. I almost feel like once you extend past the 500 million plus, you become a lot more opportunistic and look at everything, but then you have the right advisors around you that you plug in to go tell you if that industry is worth investing in, et cetera, which kind of comes back to the overall family office board to make the decision.
Yeah, and that was exactly right, Jonathan. And I'd also add in, the biggest difference in approaching a family office that, let's say, for example, they do direct invest in venture, going direct to a single family office versus going direct to a VC fund, we have to remember, and by the way, a little love for the VCs, everybody, because it's very hard to raise money as a venture fund, very, very hard. And they raise that money to invest into you, the founders. So all love to VCs. I'd really like to flip that narrative that we're seeing out there right now. But a VC raises third-party capital from limited partners by panhandling to families and pensions and friends and family to say, please, may I have this money to invest it and give a return to you. But in doing that, very much like being a founder, the VC almost all of the time, except for a few select situations, must differentiate by explaining what their investment thesis is going to be and why. Like, do they have experience in that industry? Like, have they had a past track record of angel investments or SPVs? And then most importantly, what stage are they going to invest in? What dollar amount? And if they don't have all of that buttoned up, they're never going to raise money. So many VCs have a very focused thesis. And with that focused thesis, it means that if you don't fit it, they will not and cannot invest with you, because if they want to invest in you and you don't fit the VC's thesis, they would have to go to every single LP they have and get individual approvals to do that. Otherwise, they weren't honest about where they're investing the dollars that they raised from other people. Now, if you look at a single family office that says, we like this, here's our thesis, you should probably bring that to them, or bring yourself to them if you fit. But they don't have to answer to 20 other people, except maybe nieces and nephews and uncles and aunts and cousins and brothers, if they do want to be opportunistic and go into you. So there's that flexibility, but in the flexibility, by the way, is also the danger, because if something cooler, opportunistic comes along that they like a little bit more, you're probably going to go to the bottom of the stack.
Yeah, that makes
Well
sense.
said.
Yeah. And then this kind of leads into another question, but also I feel like I want to tailor this specifically to the venture space, which is, and we can even bring it in for other deal flow as well, but really just the decision-making process, because we've kind of talked a little bit about that in different ways. Specifically, we were addressing this question, but, how does the collaborative process look? And I guess when it comes to evaluating deal flow, either for, investing in funds or investing in founders and, startups, or really just any collaborative, decisions in general, what does that investment decision-making process look like for family offices? And does that vary between different family offices, or is it, pretty much a standard across the space?
Yeah, it varies widely, but I'd say there's couple approaches. Depends on the structure, right? So a lot of the family offices nowadays, even some that are billion plus, are literally a couple family members in the office. It could just, we have quite a few that it was a Gen 1 and their partner. So those decisions are very quick generally. I would say lean a little bit more philanthropic than anything, but can be very quick. And then at that scale, you normally have a full team. I would say the average does. So that often looks like a CIO, which is, again, someone normally the Gen 1 or Gen 2, et cetera. And then kind of then investment directors down to some have full suite of analysts and associates, like a venture fund. So that decision just scales up. The one unique aspect kind of outside of how a VC is structured, I would add, is a potential for a family board. Kind of what Sachin said. A lot of times you get these parent, sorry, I talk with my hands and my video doesn't work. You get the parent single family office and then side family office, et cetera. So generally you'll still have a board kind of over all that, making decision, and that often consists of family members and an independent director, or often an advisor from an MFO that has pretty significant voting power. So I would say that's where, honestly, a lot of times it's the same as a VC, but that's where it can kind of differ on the family side.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, and amazing, Jonathan. I was actually gonna say that the only identical structure I've ever seen from one family to the next is when they're all in the same MFO, and that's all the same on the front end. However, I did think of one thing that is the same with almost every single one, at least that I've ever met, which is that first point of contact is whoever's fielding that initial call for the opportunity you're bringing to them. If you don't get conviction there, it's probably going to go nowhere. That's something they have in common.
Yeah. And I would say, if I was a startup, I know there's some startups in this founding Titan network, and they're interested in who to approach. I would think about the region. That's one thing I've seen that's completely different. Just even within the United States, San Francisco family offices versus New York versus Miami. On average, I find them to act very differently. And then you go to the UAE. And it just the cultures are different, and what their expectations are different, and the way they interact are different. Building trust is so important for some, and for others they're looking for, they care about trust, but they want to see that other people have given you the check mark, right? So I think there's two approaches. If I was a startup going to raise from family offices, and we have actually raised from family offices, both on the venture firm and on the startup, I want to be patient. It takes time, get to know them, and they want to get to know you. Two, I would take two approaches. I like, that Jonathan and Ashton mentioned the teams that are behind these families, and they're there for a reason, and it's their job to look at these investments. So, whatever tool you're using to go find them, LinkedIn or what have you, I would look for these people that are running the investment side of the family office, whether it's CIO or something. Or venture firms.
Well,
yeah, and then I was going to say one other, which is just direct to the family member. Harder to find the family members. Maybe not so hard if you're studying this and figuring it out, but I think that can definitely move faster. But then it also depends who they are within the family and what real decision-making power they have. Right? If they're lower on the totem pole, they may be receiving a trust fund check, and they can make decisions off that trust fund check, but not off the total sum of the family capital that's allocated towards this asset.
Yeah, Jonathan and I, it's funny that you say that, Sasha, and I couldn't agree more. Jonathan and I had the pleasure of being at an event at a family office just last week. And, Admittedly, I would like to do work with this group. I am interested in learning more about what they do, but I actually didn't even bother introducing myself because on my way in, I mentioned the name of where I'm going. I was on the phone with a friend and he goes, "Oh, I know the head of their family office." And I was like, "Oh, good. I don't even need to go butt in and be like, hey, like we should talk." I just like drank some drinks and met whoever came across my path and it was great. But at some point, I will be reaching out to the person who runs the show and investment land for that family because that's the best point of contact for me. And sure, if they want to be friends, great. But I figured the family member themselves probably has enough friends already.
Yeah, I would like to add on that as well because I think that's we're spending a lot of time on such, and it's everyone's going to get sick of hearing it, but once you've met one, you've met one. It's so tough because I came from the Bay, so some in San Francisco, they started a company in your field and you meet with them and they invest $1 million+ within a week. It's actually not that uncommon. And then you come over to DC where you have some very, call it high power family offices, but no one knows of them. There's no websites, there's no nothing. It's all relational. And then you get a mixed bag in New York and Miami, you get a mixed bag as well. This is generalizing areas, but it is very different where where the families are coming from, and then the people involved as well. I can't tell you how many calls I've had where someone says, I keep pinging this person, and I can't get replies, even though I had a very warm introduction to them. I'm like, yeah, because everything flows through their junior CIO. And you think a family office, I'm going to meet with the family member, but then they're not looking at it. They're letting everything flow to their team.
Yep.
So yes, a ton of different dynamics, and this is going to ruin my kind of what everybody should know about a family office question, but it's really just getting to know them and figuring out how they operate and the cadence. It sounds difficult, but like Ashton said earlier, if you ask the right questions, you can kind of fit the family offices you're talking to in a category pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think it's about. I think it's a lesson that we can all use in every aspect of our lives, which is when we meet people, ask them what they care about. So if we talk about it from an investing standpoint, if you're bringing something to a family that relates to their core businesses, more interesting. If it relates to their industries, more interesting. If it relates to their passions, more interesting. If it relates to their desired sort of legacy to give back, interesting. Like I think Matt Damon likes water. Mr. Beast has been doing a lot of water with his stuff too. But the point is you can't do that unless you ask questions. And my very quick, tiny little story, I promise. I posted a VC I met the other day in a group that I'm part of. I said, hey, everybody, I just met this VC who's full. They have 20 million of dry powder. They're looking for places to deploy. And I said a couple of things about what they deploy into. And then I said, please look at their website because their thesis is all drawn out and perfect. They tell you exactly what they want. One of those things they asked for is diverse founders. And I had a bunch of white folks reach out to me because nobody even looked at the website because these folks raising capital couldn't even be bothered to look at a website before raising their hand. And I think if we just ask a lot more questions about what people like, families, VCs, and even our close friends, so that we can buy them better presents and take them to restaurants they like, then we'll have a better life.
I love it. General life advice. So I would say as a startup that wants to raise from a family office, one just little, it's not really a hack. I think it's just the first step is to find family offices that created their wealth or generated more wealth within the category that you're in. It builds on what Ashton just said. So, if you're building some deep tech, maybe they're in Boston, maybe they're in San Francisco, but go find people that, and if it's biotech, focus on someone who's made money in biotech, because also it's not just the check, it's their network that may help you, right? They may know the CEOs of certain companies that can be your clients, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, that's what investment is all about anyways. Like if you're just looking to get a check written in and you're not actually looking to build a relationship or kind of foster those connections, it's never going to work anyways. Or if you do, usually those are, I think this is an adage for pretty much anybody. The check writers that are just writing checks and have no actual stake in what you're building are typically the loudest in the room, or not really the most helpful in any way possible. And I've seen that with a lot of fund managers too, where, you go in, and this is just on the VC side with raising. Okay, you're looking at getting another check for, fund 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And then you kind of reapproach some of the old family offices or, just your previous LPs. And they weren't really bought in the first place. They just kind of jumped in just to jump in. And then, you never really sold them. And if the returns weren't necessarily there either, and you want to raise fund 2, I've seen a lot of people, especially recently, for people that are asking me for LP help, that like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. Like fund 1 didn't really perform as well as it needed to. And fund 2 just like, you never sold them on the vision or the passion or anything else. And you have a thesis that's kind of a dime a dozen. And I think that comes down to what do these people really care about, right? And I love this topic. I love that we've gone on a tangent for this one because, I've seen a lot of the things you guys are talking about. And there's a question that popped into my head as we're going through that I've actually heard very often. And this can be kind of put out for any portion of the investment space, not specifically family offices. But when everybody spoke about what do family offices actually care about, one of the biggest things that you guys brought up is, okay, well, yeah, just talk to them, figure out, what they like, what their kids like, what all these different things are. And a lot of that information can, potentially come from stalking them on social media. It could potentially come from, having a conversation with them at an event or whatever it is. But I think that a lot of investors don't really create the best websites for themselves. Even there are a lot of people that I've seen that these theses aren't very apparent. So what are some methods for figuring out, okay, what do they care about in kind of the modern age that we're operating in, without having a lot of context, or if you're just not meeting these folks, like even if it's, whether it's in person, online, whatever it is, what are some tactics to actually kind of, get that information that's not sometimes readily available?
Yeah, I'll say from our side. So a lot of SFOs will intentionally gatekeep, right? Like I said, we don't have a website. We don't want that presence. I would actually say 90% of the ones we work with on deals don't have a website. And there's some reasons there, but one of it is over the past 10 years or longer, I guess, the family office side of things probably got inflated because of Silicon Valley. The example I spoke of where they just write $1 million check in a week. So everyone thought this was easy money, no diligence. I'm just going to go ping every family office I can find. So then you get flooded with 500 decks a month. And a lot of people pull down websites or don't put them up anymore. But that's a lot of the reason of why and not too helpful. The helpful piece is they're normally not hard to get connected with. You just have to do a little bit more digging. If you go on LinkedIn and you have a loose connection, generally someone's going to make that intro because they want to look at things. They just don't want to look at every cold email that they get. So most of them have people in cities that they trust and bring them deals from those cities. We work with Ashton Law in DC. We have people in San Francisco, New York, et cetera, kind of over the country and world because we invest globally. So it takes some digging, but I feel like once you find a couple people in that family office world, they're quickly able to connect you with the broader group.
Yeah, it is tough, and thank you, Jonathan. And it's always a pleasure to hang out with you and do stuff together. But always. But I would say there's sort of the middle ground. So the bigger families generally you can find a lot about, but the bigger the family, the more likely they're using um, funds they've launched or other sort of barriers. For example, the Walton family has bundles of funds, accelerators, incubators, like all these different things in between them and the core family, which is intentional actually to help weed out who should be talking to who, which is good. The middle, you can still usually just find some decent stuff on Google. I mean, the very fastest and simplest way is, if you know the name of the family and the name of the office, what was their business? Like where did they generate the assets that they're managing and how?
Yeah. One simple thing that we've done is just go to PitchBook. If you have a friend that has PitchBook, right, or get a license, go to PitchBook and look at companies that are similar to yourself and see what family offices are investing. That's actually, I think, a filter there. And there's other competitors to PitchBook where you can get this kind of data, and it's expensive, but if you're raising and building at scale, I think it's worth paying for some technology like this and data.
Yeah, I agree. And so we're going to open up QA in a second here. I have one more question that we're going to be asking, but we do have a couple of questions in chat. Just wanted to let you know we've been pulling those together, guys. So once we get to the last 5 minutes here, we'll jump into some of those, and then we'll have a final question to wrap everything up with for everybody. But just wanted to make sure we're prepping those in the queue. But I would say and I've got so many different things. Thank you guys so much for being on here. You're giving some amazing insights. I've been just firing in all cylinders, figuring out, okay, what's the next thing to ask? Because you guys have highlighted on so many different things that I wanted to talk about, but also, just opened up even new questions that I want to ask. So this has been amazing, guys. I would say, what are the most common challenges or misconceptions that people face, whether it's founders, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, whatever it is, other family offices? What are some of those common misconceptions people have when working with family offices?
I just want to jump right in and say probably the most common misconception in the venture market of working with family offices is that they write $1 million checks for fun. That the group Jonathan mentioned is probably 1 in 1,000. Like the vast majority are barely looking at venture, and if they're looking at venture, it's somebody else managing that venture. So I actually always tell folks that if they've gotten to a point in their fundraise where all their friends are telling them that they should go raise from a family, chances are very high that that friend has never raised from a family. And also it's sort of like again, a cop out. It's like the venture firms don't like me, so I'm going to go talk to the families. It's like, well, if the venture funds don't like you, what you're saying is maybe you're not ready to raise from anybody with love.
100%. I mean, fundraising fluency is extremely important.
Yeah, and I would say that sub-segmenting family offices, and it's Ashton and Jonathan can probably give more of the official sub-segments besides SFOs and MFOs. Internally in our teams, we talk about aspirational family offices, and I think they're actually one of the more exciting segments that we talk about. They're not officially a family office by any metric, but they're very aggressively moving in that direction. And I feel like that segment, which is kind of, again, outside of family offices, I think they align really well with startups. So you might call that more of a high net worth person.
Yeah.
They might describe themselves as just an entrepreneur, investor. So how you find them might be a bit different, but I kind of think about it internally with our team as someone that within the next 5 to 10 years, they have a really strong shot at being a family office, and they're going to do everything in their power to get there. It's a lot easier to kind of be in someone's, participate in their momentum than try to create it for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You'll hear most family offices say, "I'm opportunistic," right? What's your thesis? I'm opportunistic, which is great. A lot of them are, but what does that mean? Are they doing a $50,000 check every 3 years? Maybe, and maybe they like looking at things because it entertains them. They used to be in the business world, etc. Or I think y'all have both hit on it, but putting something in front of them that they know. So if they had a company in the field, that's great. To Sachin's point, if they've never done venture, we see ex-entrepreneurs, ex-founders, etc., get into venture all the time just because it's a space they know and they can quickly get comfortable with it. Which brings us back to Gabriel's question of how do you know that stuff when they don't have websites, etc. It's a lot to search online and trying to find someone who's familiar with kind of what they've been doing. But there are people out there like that. I just can't give you a list.
And the other note on opportunistic is that there's danger in opportunistic. We don't even need to say families, angels, medium net worths, ultra high net worths, families. There's danger in catching the eye of somebody opportunistic if you're far outside their core of excellence when it comes to their industries or their business, because when and if something comes along that they understand perfectly, they're going to skip the line right in front of you, as they should. It's sort of like if any of us had the thing that we're best at stand in front of us and say, "Hey, I'm exactly what you know and like," we would prioritize it, right? Of course, every time.
I just want to let you know right now, Ashton, that I timestamped that because that is one of the best quotes that I've ever heard in my entire life. And so I just want to let you know that was great. So I'm going to be reviewing that later, and hopefully we can turn that into a clip. If not, I'm definitely going to send you that to add to your LinkedIn bio because that was fantastic. So now we're going to head into QA, everybody. We have had a couple of questions that have been submitted. Please ask any questions you have in the chat. We'll try to get to the ones that are appropriate. We do have a couple of them here. Also, for anybody that's on our YouTube, we will be showing the questions here just so the panelists can kind of view them, and then also, showcasing you guys as well. And so for my favorite and fun part here, I can show our first question to everybody. So this is more geared towards, like the VC route and everything. So basically they're asking, or Jay is asking, are family offices the best option versus going into VC routes for education ed tech companies when investing in, pre-seed or early rounds, it sounds like. So I think maybe Sachin might be able to give some context here. And I know Ashton and Jonathan might be able to jump in as well.
Well, there's like no right answer, but my answer is no. I wouldn't go to a family office for pre-seed anything for the most part. I think they want to see, milestones that have been hit. They want to see momentum. They want to see traction, team, all of these things, which, that some of that can exist in pre-seed, but typically doesn't exist very well, and to the degree that I would expect a family office would like to see. So that's my answer.
Perfect. Thank you. And anybody else have anything else they want to chime in on that, or is that a perfect response?
Well, I think I would just say if there's a family, so I'll flip it and say, if a family office came to me and said, "Hey, Ash, I'm thinking about going into a pre-seed round for this industry," I would say, "Why?" And if they said, "Well, it's because I like ed tech," I would say, "Well, there are a bunch of ed tech funds that would happily take that check, and then they'll make 20 investments for you." That's where I would take the idea of that check, because doing 20 pre-seed checks as a family office is insane. 20, ed tech focused, etc. So very hard to diversify. Pre-seed is so wildly risky. I think that would just be a bad idea on the family side, but also a bad idea on the founder side, because where the heck are you going to find family offices taking calls interested in pre-seed, which they're probably not interested in ed tech, probably not. So it's just danger on both sides.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. I agree, but I think I know where the question's coming from. So I heard that's the best way to go now. This touches on something we've discussed earlier. These softer side investments get a lot of traction with family offices, right? Everybody wants to see education expand, and we've seen probably 20 ed tech companies over the past 6 months. They all have kind of this secondary arm of offering education to third world countries. So there's a lot of those aspects that have gained a lot of traction with family offices from the philanthropic side of things. So I think that's where it's coming from. However, I agree with Ash and Sasha. You got a ton of VCs that specialize around this, and there are so many out there nowadays that the family offices, it's going to be very difficult for them to weed through which ones are actually going to be the winners.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think
I mentioned this earlier, but I think there's something really valuable about trying to pitch people who are in a specific segment in industry who have kind of 20/20 hindsight, which you can glean from that pitch session. I mean, that's gold. You should definitely not give that up. Even if you're getting a no, 95%, 98% of the time, you're learning every single time if you're asking the right questions.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also, there's been a couple of mixed deals, even some stuff that we're personally even looking at ourselves where, when it comes to sponsored capital, sometimes there might be, business deals that a family office might be involved in, but it's not necessarily your typical investment. And I wouldn't go after that in the early, like pre-seed, seed stage. If it gets presented to you on the table as like a bundled offer, if you're doing a software company or something, sure. But like, I wouldn't actively be looking for that stuff because, I mean, unless you're about to sell your pre-seed startup because things aren't going well, like your people probably aren't approaching you for those types of deals this early. And as we've said, the information isn't as apparent right now. Just from me personally, as a director for an accelerator, I would not tell you to go that route either. But let's go to the next question, which I feel like will be fun. So what's your take on family office connector groups? So they brought up some potential options like Force Family, the Family Office Association. So basically, what is your take around, communities or some of these organizations, maybe a membership based for family offices?
We're in a couple, so I'll jump in. I think they're strong. I think it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for deals, which has kind of been the bulk of the conversation here, I don't think they're incredibly valuable. There might be some out there that I just haven't come across. I don't know if that's Force or if that's supposed to be Forge. If it is Force, I haven't heard of that one, but Forge is a strong one. So they're really good for kind of the ancillary pieces where people aren't taking into MFOs or trying to do in-house, and then often, most of the time, to get to an MFO. But they're good for those aspects, the kind of deal room aspect of it. We haven't had the best luck, just from our experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say with any of these groups, I've joined just these entrepreneur groups, founder groups, like all the things. You have the Entrepreneurs Organization, you have YPO. I've recently met the founder of Spark Family Office, who's one of my favorite people in the world, RLB. But she does a tremendous amount of work at Spark Family Office and hand curating every member, and the members pay dues. That's similar to EO and YPO. I would say look at the business model of any of these things that you're exploring. Figure out like where they're making their money. I think dues are the most healthy because that just means that everybody's agreed to pay for the cost of the organization as members. That's usually a good sign. If maybe they make all their money on annual events, they charge a bunch of money for, that's the product, that's totally fine. I would just say when looking at any of them, first look at the model, and then second, meet as many members as you can before taking the plunge, 2, 3, 4, and try to go to an event where they don't chop your arm off to show up. And just doing the diligence to figure out if it's a group that you want to be part of. Because some of these groups are businesses for the sake of being a business, and some of the groups are membership-based organizations so that people can earn trust, collaborate, and grow their networks in a non-networky way.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, we're in the community space, and we've seen and been approached by a couple of these different types of groups, or also literally outreaching to some of them ourselves. But the biggest thing, if you're joining any of these organizations, if you are, looking at them personally, I would say is just what's the real value add to being a part of them? Are you really trying to collaborate and connect with other people, or are you just joining it just to, have your name on a list, whatever it is? Just make sure you're getting the value add out of it for whatever org you're going with or going for, because we all only have so much time in the day, especially if you're a part of a family office. You've probably got a lot more, things on your plate. And so just make sure that, if you're considering a community or an organization that you want to be active with, that, it's really the right fit for you, and you're not just, doing it just to do it, or just because your friend told you, oh, this is a great group.
Yeah, I would say most of them, by and large, if your objective is joining them to sell stuff, there's probably a better way. If you're joining because it's a group of people that you want to build relationships and learn from, you're going to get a lot more out of it and be a lot more valuable to the others.
Yeah, I think that's something I learned in dealing with family offices, is that when you can kind of switch from trying to sell to just trying to be with them and learn from them and be a part of their ecosystem and add value, most importantly, to them. And whenever we made that switch from, here's XYZ deal, here's another deal on the VC side too, just talking about topics that they're thinking about and that are important to them. And hey, I just met this other family office, they were talking about this. I know you were talking about this particular subject. So just getting into the ecosystem and being a conduit for knowledge and any value that you can bring.
100%. Well, thank you guys so much for being on. We took a little bit more time on that question, but if you guys want to spend a 30-second on this one really quick, which is what's one thing you wish every business leader knew about family offices, entrepreneurship, that they often don't? And then if you want to just give a quick answer for that one, rapid fire, and then I'll close everything out for you guys. I know we're almost at the top of the hour.
I'll just give one. They're everywhere. I often hear about startups that are just focused on one particular region, and I did give some reasons earlier on why you should do that. But there are family offices all over the world, and their demeanors and the way they invest and the way they act are so different. I definitely think open up your aperture a bit.
Yeah, Gabriel, I think you had mentioned the point, but the right ones can be super connectors for businesses. They're not your traditional VC that's going to step in and really dig through your business and find all the cracks and help you out. But they can, if you have one from an industry, they can be one of the most valuable assets on your cap table.
And then Ashton, close us out.
Well, so we can reference family offices here, but this is just writ large in general. Is I wish that net new relationships would try to provide value before they try to ask for stuff. Sasha, and you said that last question, but that all these cold emails asking me to buy their stuff, cold emails work very well when you're not popping in and saying, can I take from you? Can you provide me value? But if you flip that script and say, how can I help you? Not by selling you stuff, but anyhow, it goes a lot further.
No, perfectly said. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for jumping on. I know, Ashton, it's the top of the hour, so I know you've got a very important call that you've got to jump on. So thank you for coming on. I know you guys might have to drop as well. I'm just going to give everybody some context for some of the updates on our end, as well as some of our community partners. And so thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. And so our next session is going to be for Tales from the Pantheon. And essentially that's going to be on community at scale. So we're going to have Kurt Walker out in Las Vegas, as well as Joey Womack out in Atlanta. Kurt basically runs the Fusion 42 group. And also they're about to host their next global super accelerator, which is going to be coming up in September. So if you guys are interested in looking at that program, have the link below for you. And definitely sign up for the next Tales from the Pantheon session to learn more about just how large scale communities operate. Both of these groups have thousands of entrepreneurs and community builders within their own networks, investors, all of those different things. And so they'll be discussing how they got to where they are, as well as some of the tactics around building communities of those large sizes. In regard to Founding Titans as well, you can check out our events calendar. We have our event calendar on our website. Under the blogs tab. That'll soon be switching over to news next week. And then we also have the information there for all the upcoming events that we're going to be throwing. We have an in-person event that we're going to be doing on September 11th in Austin, if you guys are interested, for founders and investors to kick off fundraising season. So if you're want to talk to all the local investors and all the local founders, depending on which side you're on, definitely go to that event. And then last but not least, we're doing pre-orders for Founding Titans. So, jump onto the platform there. We are offering very, very steep discounts right now. Like, I think one of them is like 97% off for the upcoming platform that's launching in November. And so, yeah, those are my quick spiels just because we're over time here. I want to make sure that we showcase the links again for everybody. So if you guys want to collect with Jonathan, here's his LinkedIn here. I don't know if you have any final words you wanted to toss in, Jonathan.
No, it's been great. And I just saw some of the chat so far, so I'll have to check that one out. And just real quick, Jay, I think it is a good strategy. I would just focus on that tech VC. But that's it for me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. And then Sachin, do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to impart on us?
No, enjoyed being here with everyone, and glad to be a resource. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you guys so much for jumping on. And then I'll give a really quick last push. Ashton had to jump onto another call, but here's his link as well. If you guys want to connect with him, make sure you do so on LinkedIn. And thank you all so much for joining us today, and look forward to catching you on the next session. Thanks.
See ya. Bye.